Came here in 1986 to run it for myself in October. I signed the papers and I was owner of the Red Barn Incorporated. People come in here for the experience, more so than I think anything else. And they love the fact that somebody's actually taking the time to listen. Find that balance between doing what you love that isn't really work, that might pay the bills, and more importantly, can resonate with people and actually to some extent help people. That's pretty rewarding. Without my customers, I would be doing what I don't love, guaranteed.
Everybody looks ready, so I figured we'd start. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. If anybody would like an agenda, they are in the plastic sleeve in the back of the room. Before we get started, I will ask our chairman to please stand and lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up, I'm going to be reading a proclamation that I actually had the pleasure of reading on Saturday night. There was a great event at the Elks Lodge. That was a fundraiser for the Maine Children's Cancer Program, and it was hosted by the Waterville Elks, and it included the Al Corey Band, and Al Corey's family was there, and I was able to present them with this. It was a wonderful evening. Whereas Elias Al Corey was born a child native to the city of Waterville as one of 10 children. Whereas Al Corey served his community faithfully and honorably in the Second World War as part of the famed Rainbow Division, the 42nd Infantry in France. Whereas upon his return home to Waterville, Al Corey formed a band that became known as the Al Corey Band, which entertained generations of residents in Waterville and beyond. Whereas Al Corey ran a music store on Main Street that provided instruments and music lessons that touched countless lives in the Waterville community. And whereas Al Corey's music, generosity, and his smile continue to live in the hearts and memories of countless Watervillians. Now therefore I, Nick Isgro, Mayor of Waterville, on behalf of the City Council, recognize June 2nd, 2018 as Al Corey Day, and I want to call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. And it was a wonderful evening, and it was so well attended. I think they are thinking about doing that every year, so hopefully we'll get to see the band back together again next year. Next up is Community Notes. Community Notes is a time where if anybody has something they would like to speak about or talk about that is not currently scheduled to be spoken about, already on the agenda tonight, now would be the time to do it. We just ask you come to the podium and tell us your name and where you live and what you have to say. I do just want to reiterate that the budget is on the agenda tonight, so if you want to talk about budget and taxes, now is not the time to do that. We'll have plenty of time to do that later in the evening. So if there's anybody that has a community note, now is the time to do it.
All know me, know how I earn a living. Sorry, I just really want to do the thing from Jaws. Spence Conley, Ward 6. I'm going to apologize. Most of you know I've come up here before, spoken from the heart, but today there is an intense amount of pain, so I'm going to read something I have prepared. Now, with the lies we've been told and echoed here in the paper and vice versa, depending on whoever started the lie first, I really can't keep track. And because we were told that there were no outsiders working on this recall effort, a thing we know is a lie now. I really suspect that we've had people come in here that are not residents to read prepared speeches. I know this because I've observed it. I've seen them come up here with printed out speeches. They contained the same font. They have had used the same verbiage, had the same style as if written by one author. Now, I can't prove this. This is just something I've observed. I'm going to propose something to help the credibility of the council and this process. The credibility, as I've walked around Waterville, some of you may have seen me with my limp, has been called into question. You've been called liars, that you guys have the ethics of sleazy lawyers, and I want to apologize because sleazy lawyers probably don't want to be, associated with what's going on here right now. So I am offering up proof that I am actually a Waterville resident. If somebody wants, you can come up here, look at my driver's license. You will see where I live here in Waterville. I would suggest anybody else that speaks tonight or in the future, unless you're afraid of something, do the same thing. If somebody wants to look, you can see 18 Dalton Street. And, I really want to encourage that we do this, because what's happening is we are not becoming a community. We're letting people come in, say horrible things about us, and then we argue about that. By showing that we actually live here in Waterville, we will build a stronger sense of community. We will be held accountable for what we say up here. And we will get to know each other and become a better, stronger Waterville. Now, if anybody out there still thinks that this recall has anything to do with a Facebook comment, please see me after this, because there's a bridge down on the river that I'm willing to sell you real cheap cash if you really want it. Because we all know that, well, my time is up, but again, I thank you and would suggest everybody prove that you live here if you're going to weigh in on events.
If anybody in the back would like seats, there are some extra open seats here. So I don't want everyone to feel like they have to stand, but I'm sure we could get some chairs if you want. Hi.
Hey, I am Rian Finch. I live in Ward 6. There's been a lot of confusion about what the recall escrow effort is about. And as somebody who's worked behind the scenes on the recall effort, in particular the adminning of the recall escrow page, I would like to clarify for the record what drove the recall. And those would be Nick Isgro's social media comments. In response to a political protest at the Mall of America, Nick Isgro said, I guess since none of these people have jobs that matter, they wouldn't care about hurting innocent store owners who actually contribute to society. Disgusting. In response to the Pope calling for peace, Nick Isgro says a man constantly waging war on his own religion. He again attacks the Pope when Pope Francis says, if we fail to suffer with those who suffer, we need to question our own humanity, with comments over the church's tax-exempt status. In response to a fellow Republican condemning the racist Roy in Alabama, Roy Moore, the cuckolded battle cry, lose gracefully, it's better than winning. On that note, in response to a sexual assault bill that another fellow Republican, Bruce Poliquin, supported and pushed through Congress, still waiting for the press release about supporting the wall and ending the refugee racket, instead we get this cucked shit. In response to complaints about Gibson withdrawing from his race, including a comment, how can we ever expect to compete if we can't rally our base, raise money, and get shit done, Nick Isgro replies, this post is right on point. Apparently that means rallying the base and tweeting these comments. He also says, if immigration policy over the last 60 years was about what benefits Americans first, tuberculosis wouldn't now be a thing in some parts of the U.S. He continues to attacking immigrants, particularly refugees. This threat is an effing disaster. Any Republican not willing to shut down the refugee racket and the mass importation of people from third world hellholes, it continues on. And then in response to the Somali population in Lewiston and Superintendent Bill Webster commenting, there was no crystal ball about what was coming, Nick tweeted a picture of refugees with an added comment, swarms of invaders crisscross Germany's farmland, and captioned it, no worries everyone, diversity is our strength. And finally, Nick Isgro tweeted, eat it hog, to a survivor of a school shooting Not one of these has he apologized for. Not one of these does he think he needs to be held accountable for. And for that, there was a recall initiated. Thank you.
Next up, community notes.
My name is Scott McAdoo. I'm a Waterville resident. I'm here with to announce a upcoming event. The Waterville Community Land Trust is going to kick off an inaugural and annual Waterfest community event. That's June 24th from noon to 3 p.m. down at the Waterville Boat Landing and Kuchar Field parking lot. We're going to have a lot of family-friendly activities, which includes trail walks, face painting, children's museum mobile unit, outdoor survival training, and much more. We also encourage you to please participate in our Parade of Wheels. Now what that is, you can bring your bike, scooter, wheelchair, stroller, and we are going to have stuff where you can decorate them, and then we're going to go from Kuchar Field. We don't have the route exactly planned out yet. We're going to do like a little around Water Street and down the area. It's like a little, just a little parade of, it's a parade of wheels. We're also going to have door prizes. Pete's Pig is going to be down there selling concessions. We'll also have other concessions. And all the events are free admission. So again, June 24th, noon to 3 p.m., Waterville Boat Landing and Kuchar Field parking lot. First annual Waterfest. Hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody else for community notes?
Julian Payne, Ward 5. I'd like to recall Nick Isgrove because he's a Republican and we lost the election last November. And I didn't like the results. He's also responsible for global warming. And I'd also like to bring to attention this flyer here that says vote yes. For diversity, we want to affirm diversity, welcoming, and safe community. So we're affirming this, yet Nick's been mayor for 4 years. So, you know, it seems like this has been going quite well. I would also like to bring to the attention that this does not have who paid for and endorsed this flyer. I'd like to know who's promoting this in my community. For all I know, it could be the Russians. So I'm going to leave this with Patty and have the city look into this. And I'm sure if there was possibly a recall, our community is going to be so safe afterwards. Our budget will be great because we won't need Chief Massey anymore. Thank you. Thank you, Patty.
Anybody else for community notes?
Please. I'm Steve O'Coin in Ward 2. And this year, June 20th, between 5 and 8 at Dave's Place, right across from Ace Tire, is our 11th annual North End Night. And so specific invitation to Councilor Soul and Councilor White, but all of you, of course, and everyone here, because everything is free. We feed everyone. We entertain everyone. Lots of stuff for the kids, music, dunk tank, and a number of other things. And I want to say that this event for 11 years has been funded by volunteer contributions from the community. We don't have a grant. This is simply our act to celebrate the end of school and to create a sense of community around us. And that is exactly why we do it.
What's the date, Steve?
20th,
And what's the time again?
5 to 8 in the evening. And then anyone who wants to stay and help us pick and pack it up and cart it off so that when you get up in the morning, there's nothing there in the park except grass and occasional person. So
Very good.
come right along.
Thank you, Steve. Is there anybody else for community notes?
Good evening. My name is Catherine Weeks, Ward 1. I would just like to leave a couple of comments and thoughts for everybody. where voting for this recall is on the 12th. I had called the city clerk's office asking the question. I know it was published in the Sentinel on May 5th, but we know the Sentinel is so truthful and reliable, just like CNN. But the Sentinel said, my question was, how many Colby students signed the petition for recall? And supposedly, there were 200 out of the 887 signatures. Well, guess what? Probably they don't even know who Nick Isgro is. Never mind Mrs. Isgro and their children. No one seems to be talking about their wonderful children, who I am sure has had to have a heavy burden going to school every day. And those 200 wonderful Colby students are probably in the Hamptons for the summer, not caring about what happens to us in Waterville, not caring about, and I know we're going to be talking about the budget, but not caring about the city property tax, which this week on my street we had to witness a family who had lived there for 40 years have to sell their house because the property tax was so high at the current rate. Never mind now. Very timely, and I wish Mr. Weber were here today. This came out in the mail today, which is so true. How much does Colby College pay for property tax? 0. How much does the average property owner? And it gives a number here. I know we're going to talk about the taxes, but maybe we need to spend a few dollars to have an outside consultant come in to see where cuts can be made instead of increasing the taxes again. But I urge everyone to think about the recall. We need Mayor Isgro. He is a person of integrity, financial awareness, and in the past has vetoed many of these budget ideas that have come across. So please, let's start thinking what is best for Waterville. And I do agree with the person that said when the signatures were coming up, one person was honest enough to say, oh yes, I'm from Portland. I'm up here helping this recall. So it's been verified time in and time out. Thank you.
So anybody else for community notes? All right, I'll take the last one.
If I may, before you
Yeah.
go on. I would like to just remind everyone that the deadline to request an absentee ballot for no reason is this Thursday at 5 p.m. We have extended hours in the city clerk's office tomorrow until 7 p.m. for anyone who needs to register to vote or would like to vote an absentee ballot. On election day, we're voting at Thomas College again this year, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The polls will be open. We're asking folks to enter through Vining Drive, which is the southerlymost entrance at Thomas College where the athletic fields are. We're hoping to push people that way and then exit out the main entrance, which frees up that entrance for all the voters taking a right going back to town. The results of the election will be posted on the website that evening. We're expecting it'll take a few hours to do the hand count for the recall election. So I would ask folks to be patient and we'll post the results as soon as they're available. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just like to say that while you're all here, look, we do have an election coming up. And if you are against statewide partisan political parties paying multiple operatives, 8 out of 12 paid staffers to come to our city and influence our lives, if you're against political action committees run out of Connecticut, raising money and promoting themselves on nationwide platforms to influence how we live our lives here in the city of Waterville, and if you are against groups from around the state descending into this city and trying to change how we do business, I'm going to ask you to get behind me and vote no on the recall on Tuesday. And with that, we will move on to the disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there anybody here who feels they have a conflict of interest on anything they will vote on tonight? No? Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Next up, unfinished business, Order 95, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
An order, amendment to order 74-2018.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this item? Can I get a roll call, Patty?
Counselor Stoll?
Yes.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Counselor Lessing?
Yes.
Counselor Mayu?
Yes.
Counselor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor DuPont?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to new business, Resolution 97, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for authorizing issuance of a second-hand license to Erica Johnson and Angela Halley doing business as Retail Therapy Consignment Boutique.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Are they here, Mayor?
I don't know, you could ask.
Are they here?
Anybody here?
I don't know if they're here or not.
I'm going to take that as a no. If so, they'd like to remain anonymous. All those in favor? Okay. Resolution 98, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for issuance of a victualer's license to Stephanie LaCroix doing business as Engine 5 Bakehouse LLC.
Move to adopt. And I know Stephanie is here. So,
Hi. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the business? I got it. You don't have to if you don't want to. But it's a great chance to come up and advertise and let us know. I got some exciting emails on this.
Hi, I'm Stephanie LaCroix, owner of Engine 5 Bakehouse. We're going to be opening a retail bakery at 140 Western Avenue. It's in the former Engine 5 substation for the fire department. And after that, it was the Parks and Rec garage for the city for a number of years. And we've been working on this for almost 5 years. So I don't have many familiar faces here from when I went through zoning in 2013 when I purchased it. So yeah, we hope to be opening this month. Jumping through a few more hoops and getting our permits, and we'll be doing sweet and savory pies and a whole line of pastries to go, and there'll be a whole section on the history of firefighting in the city as well.
Wow, wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor? Thanks so much. Next is Resolution 99, 2018.
move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for authorizing the renewal of liquor licenses expiring between July 1, 2018 and September 30th, 2018.
Move to adopt.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Next, Resolution 100, 2018.
A resolution providing for approval of lease for use of city airport hangar. Be it resolved by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers that the city manager be authorized to execute a one-year lease with Klaus Thallinger for the use of the north hangar at the Robert Lafleur Airport according to the terms and conditions shown on the attached lease agreement.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Michael?
Randy and I would like to ask you to postpone indefinitely, which kills this resolution because the person interested in renting the hangar is pulled out of the deal, so there's no deal at this time. We're going to still work to get that hangar occupied, but not right now.
Motion to table indefinitely.
Second.
All in favor? Resolution 101, 2018.
Move to read by summary only.
Second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for approval of leases land at LaFleur Airport. The existing rate for land leases is 15 cents per square foot of building space. The proposed rates shown above would include additional land area that is also used by hangar owners, such as paved areas in front of the hangars, as well as land areas between hangar buildings.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there discussion on this? Okay, all in favor? Resolution 102, 2018.
A resolution providing for authorizing issuance of an outdoor dining permit to you-know-who's pub. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Waterville, acting as municipal officers as follows, that the City Council hereby authorize the issuance of an outdoor dining permit to you-know-who's pub in the area shown on the attached map.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We'd like to talk about this resolution and the next one together, because of course they'd be sharing the same proposed outdoor dining area. So Nick and I had a number of meetings with the two proposers. I know that Kevin Joseph from the pub is here, and Jennifer, blanked it, is also here from Italia. You all received a diagram of what this outdoor dining spot would look like. And it's our job as staff to help people who have a proposal like this to get it to this stage. The first thing we look at is, are there any fatal flaws? Are there any serious traffic safety hazards? Anything else that would really cause us to say, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. So our job is not to advocate or deny, but to help them get to this point and let you, the council, determine whether we should go forward or not with the proposal. And as I say, both of them are linked. So we're glad to answer any questions you have. They're both here. They can also make a presentation on their behalf. You can ask them questions.
Has this gone, has the parking committee met?
Parking committee hasn't met in over a year.
Oh, and the reason I'm asking, and I guess that's a bigger question as to why, I know 10 years ago, and I'm skipping ahead now because there's going to be another one of these on the agenda tonight,
Right.
In front of 18 below. My question is this part of a bigger plan? Was this thought through? The concern being, obviously, if this wasn't part of a bigger plan, and we haven't had the committees that we have in place to look at this stuff, look at it and talk through some of the pros and cons, have we talked to the neighbors? Because there's a concern that we're piecemealing something, that somebody else is going to come forward and want to cut off another section rather than taking care of this all at once. Because my understanding was we were going to use the pocket park, but now my understanding is that there's going to be Jersey barricades to block a throughway.
Right. I mean, the discussion started initially with the idea of using the park in the concourse, that green space, very close to where they're talking about doing. And then in the course of standing there and looking at it, looking at the options, the street also became an option. And it had, I think, some advantages for them. So, is it part of a bigger plan? No, it isn't. I mean, it's not a proposal that we developed. It's something that came at us. We tried to react as best we could and allow them to develop it and get it to this point.
Well, I think it would be fair, if it's all right with the council, that we allow Mr. Joseph and Ms. Bergeron, if they want to just let us know exactly what, because basically we have a couple diagrams and a very brief summary. If you just want to let us know what it is that you're looking to do there, and then people have time to respond to that.
My name's Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Jennifer.
Hi.
I guess what we're trying to do here is just do something more on our side of town to get more people outside, more engaged. So I think if you see the picture, we've already gone through the safety part of it, also with the police department and the fire department. So I think that part will be clear. In sense of the driving area part of it, the parking, there'll be no parking at all taken away. there'll be zero parking takeaway. Also, the crosswalks will not be interrupted by what we want to do. It's a fairly small section of that street. And the reason why we thought about this instead of the park, so we can use the park for other events also. Have like a little festival downtown. Just again, to get foot traffic down there, to do something, they're doing more up the street, try to do it down where we are also.
But you're blocking the street, though.
We will be blocking the street, and first of all, this year, it'll only be for the 2 months trial period. Then we can figure this out as we go along also. But yes, John.
What would your times be that you would be using this space?
My latest that I will be there, we start serving food at 10. And then after that, no one goes on the deck. Then it'll be shut down.
We stop serving at 9, so it wouldn't be a late night. It would be only as we're serving food at the pub. People would go inside at that point.
Exactly, yeah, there will be no one drinking anything outside after 10 o'clock.
And-
Or, I should say, if they're having a pizza, I don't want to take the pizza away from them halfway through the meal. But no, there'll be no outdoor service at that point, which means they have to be inside.
So, and what I handed out were just the first 2 pictures are what we would be striving for. Something that looks elegant and adds really to the downtown look, that is classy, and we've talked about having it look like it's one unified
Right.
space.
Do they have that?
They have these.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And then the map, I only had Google Maps to go by, so I did a screenshot on my phone. So it's not great, but you can see that from any, the Main Street entrance, you still can go on that circle that is parking near where the pub is located. And you can take the street and still reach the other part of the concourse. So that it's not inhibiting traffic from getting anywhere except that one little square, which is really in front of our locations. Days Jewelry is in that, and Holy Cannoli, and that's as far as where that's located, it's right there for those businesses.
And also where the statue is down, the flow of traffic will be a lot easier to get in and out of the concourse no matter where you are.
How,
And we did speak to the furniture store and also Days Jewelry,
Yeah,
and they were all set with this.
And Holy Cannoli, how do they feel about this?
So they were originally part of this proposal.
I see.
Candace decided the expense was not something that she wanted to continue forward with. She's not opposed, but not going forward with it with us.
Right.
If this was a successful trial, then she'd like the option to try and participate in the next round. If next year we said, we're here again, we'd really like this to be something that continues, then she'd like the opportunity to go forward. And then I do have some pictures because I believe there's going to be some more conversation after we've spoken. So I've got pictures that I won't get into until we find out if there's other conversation. But what I'd like to say about it is I think it adds to some of the exciting changes. You know, we're really shooting for Waterville being a place where it's more interesting. There are many, many cities in this state where it's just fun to be walking around downtown. Ours right now is not one of those cities, so we'd like to make it one where people feel like there's a lot to see, it's exciting, where new people come into town and say, wow, this is a great little town. We're so happy to be here. And at the moment, I think we're all hoping that we get there, but we feel like this would be, you know, just one little added thing for the town.
I think it'll bring energy to our area downtown. People can walk around easier this way, and there's something else to offer. And again, with the park being there, we can do music, we can do it on a small scale festival. So there's things that we can use with the park also on the weekends to draw people downtown.
Because that back side of the concourse, well, we've got Main Street, and then we've got the concourse, which is the back side of Main Street, really. It feels forgotten. Like, nobody really pays attention to those back entrances and makes them really welcoming and friendly. And we'd like to have it so something there that's a section of street that you want to also walk on, that it's not simply that you want to be on Main Street. We've already mentioned it doesn't take away parking. It doesn't take away any access to the sidewalk. That was one of the benefits here. The sidewalks aren't blocked at all. And it doesn't take away access to driving through the concourse. And I think we've covered what we had as the pros for this
Right.
project.
And the key issue also, the key point is that if this does go forward, it'll start August 1st. So we're only talking really the first year, 2 months. And this will give us a good indication if it will work in the future. So I hope you all remember that part of it, that it's not, we're not doing this in May, trying to do it for one summer. It's towards the end of the summer, we're trying to figure, if this will work. And we want it to work for everyone in our area. All the stores, every owner, we want this to work for everybody.
So you're talking from August until the end of September?
Right now, the first year, yes. Yeah, and that can be like our trial period to see how it goes. And, I'm sure there'll be pros and cons, whatever, but then we can decide at that point.
If we put off a decision on this to allow some extra study and planning, would a July notification give you enough time to get it done in August?
I believe so.
Early July. It scales down what we can do. We're trying to make something that really is attractive and welcoming. And I believe the more time we have to have a structure built and plan for how the space would look, the better.
John, honestly, that's a great point, because we do want to do this the right way. We want it to look like it's not just umbrellas and that's it. We want to really put up something where it's nice, where you go in the concourse and you can see and say, wow, we got to go there. It's going to be different, as you can see from the pictures.
I think you're right. I think it's actually very exciting and it could be done really well. I think the concern with just not taking a second, because to be honest, the council kind of just had this thrown at them at the end of last week, and I realize it's not your fault at all. But then we have another plan coming up right after this that takes up parking spaces. And I know the way things were handled back about 15 years ago with the Silver Street was there was a larger kind of plan to say, all right, who wants what, how does this going to work? And I don't think this is something that needs to take months and months and months to accomplish. I think I'm just concerned that if it gets piecemealed, we're gonna have other people coming asking for different things, and it won't be done well or as thoughtful processes. And again, I realize you guys have put a lot of thought and process. I just know that everyone at this table kind of got a packet at the end of last week and we're like, whoa, okay, with all of these things. And I'm just trying to take whether it's fair or not, I'm taking the 18 below plan into context with yours. Yes, Council.
So, Kevin and Jennifer, I applaud the thought and the investment of time and energy into this, along with Travis, which we're going to get to, but definitely I was part of the circle with Winifred, myself, and Mike, and our city engineer. And I went down specifically to look at things. We talked, we discussed. No one can appreciate more, being in a hospitality business like I am, the thin lines of profit and loss statements as we all go through. And I can tell you right up front that this is a fantastic and great idea in all aspects. And I think it would add a different culture and a different vibe to the economic revitalization going downtown, and of course the expectation of foot traffic that is anticipated with the Kobe Dorm coming downtown, along with CGI and many other investments and other properties that are being bought up in the downtown. So I understand the complete dynamic of this. I think this could be a great economic windfall for existing businesses, if not more businesses to open up. I do err on the side of caution with the mayor and others about proper planning, not piecemealing. I think also it's business protocol for business owners to have their concerns for their abutting neighbors and take that all into context and have really good dialogue with one another and work some of the kinks out to this and come to a uniform agreement that co-businesses that abut each other can come to a compromise and dialogue with. And according to my information and my correspondence and others on the council, we know that there is some opposition here to this, and obviously we're going to hear some of that opposition and the reasons and stipulations as to opposition. But I think having this go before the planning board, having this go through the steps and mandate a more limited deadline so that you guys can possibly have the proper planning to start this in August, that is something that I'm most interested in. And I'm sure others on the council are most interested in, because again, I feel like if we're going to do this, and as exciting as it sounds, we want to make sure that we're taking all the proper steps to get to the fruition of what we're trying to deal with. So in essence, I'm very enthusiastic about this, but I also think there needs to be proper planning, business protocol, dialogue with one another, your abutting neighbors, and we need to make sure that we have time to work the kinks out.
So all of our direct abutting neighbors we have spoken with and talked to, and naively we thought those were the only people who might really be interested in this because it directly affects us. It turns out, I think we'll hear that there are other people we could have spoken to, and the letters did go out late, so we didn't have a chance to have conversations with everyone. So.
Was that on the city, the letters from the city went out late?
Well, it went out Friday, I think,
That's
so.
late, yeah. That's late.
But like I said, two of the people by us approved it. They were fine with it, and that's days, which I thought, if anything, they might have but they were all for it. As was the furniture store, so just so everybody does know that.
What about the police? Did you contact them
Yes.
to see if there'd be any issues?
Yep, yeah, they were down. Chief asked them down.
And the fire department.
And the fire department also.
And they
Yep.
gave you good reports?
Yes, yeah.
Thanks.
Mike, when did you have this plan? When did we have this plan? I'm just wondering why the letters went out Friday, because it seems like a really short notice to let people know what's going on.
Well, we did our best to find out who all the owners were, to try to get their addresses, not only the building owners, but the businesses in the buildings. Try to let the tenants know too, so, yeah, it just took us that much time to get it done.
All right, so I think we will, is there any other questions from the council?
I will say though, if anyone does want my number and they want to come down and just physically see it and talk to me, please, 24 hours a day, always call me. And I can show you exactly what we want to do.
Same here. Obviously, we would like to discuss it with you if you have questions or
Yeah.
concerns.
Okay.
It just might be something we need a little more time to think about. I mean, I don't know. But I'd like to maybe put it off till July.
Maybe even at least a couple weeks.
Will you take questions from the public?
We certainly will. Yep.
Is it okay to ask?
Not right now, one second. Michael, on your side of this, because obviously, you know, I'm not a big fan of large committees and meetings and that don't get anything done, and there's a timeline here. Best process forward for you to be able to work with all of the parties involved to see if this is possible. I'm assuming the planning board is not the best route.
No.
But we do have a parking committee.
It's really not a planning board matter. It's not a parking committee matter either.
Well, one of these is. That one is.
If you look at the
That's true.
purpose statement that was drafted for the parking committee, I'm not sure that.
I feel like we haven't talked to the
proposal
parking committee about
falls
anything.
underneath it. I mean, you can always bring it, but they haven't met for about 15 months. We're talking about 2 parking spaces.
None at our place.
None at yours.
None at our place. The parking will not be touched.
Right.
I will say that as someone who participated in the meetings discussing the issue with the farmers market and the businesses that were concerned about the placement of the farmers market, I thought that worked very well. We simply had a meeting where we convened the interested parties, and we made sure that there was time to meet, and there was an extended discussion where we managed to come to a consensus. I don't know if that kind of ad hoc process would work.
It would probably be best.
So I know I've spoken to both of you, and I would like to echo Sydney's comments that I'm very enthusiastic and supportive of this, and I think it would be an exciting addition to the downtown. But I have also been made aware of some concerns that exist, and I think it's really important that we move forward with everyone having a chance to fully kind of consider what the implications are and have their concerns addressed. So I would suggest, if we don't want to take it, this proposal specifically, I don't think we could make a case for it going to the parking committee, given that it doesn't involve parking at all, but I think the planning board might be a bit onerous, so if we could suggest convening a committee to discuss what options would be. What do you think?
Outdoor dining committee.
Similar to what you did with the farmer's market.
Yeah.
That would probably be the best way.
I wouldn't mind being in on that.
Well, you've certainly been
And
a
we
central
certainly-
player in that process.
And we certainly could have this dialogue sooner rather than later.
I do want to make sure people that want to have have commentary on this do, so yeah, go ahead.
Well, anything else that we need to know about when this might start to happen, so we can be involved from
Oh,
right
yeah.
now? Okay, so you'll contact us and let us know. Okay, great.
Very good. But I know people with some concerns also want to stand up. Do you want to answer them now, or do you want to wait till you meet with the subcommittee?
I just wanted to respond to the comment that the city manager made about the parking committee.
Yes, please.
I was appointed to the parking committee.
Yes.
And a year ago, this month, I believe, we stopped meeting despite my request to continue to meet. The city engineer at the time didn't have the time, couldn't spend the time. Despite my emails to the appropriate parties, there was no response, and the parking committee effectively had lost its wind and was unwilling or unable to continue its role as an official city entity. So the parking committee is, as far as I'm concerned, as the chairman, it has not been dissolved, it has not been abandoned. It is still an appropriate place to discuss parking issues. So I would encourage the council to, if they choose to involve the parking committee, please call upon them. Thank you.
Well, and I realize I don't want to get too far off topic, but I appreciate you saying that, because I know the library's had issues, and there's all these things going on, and I'm a little concerned that we're just finding out that the committee hasn't met in 15 months. So hopefully we can do that. I know it has nothing to do with you, so thank you.
So how would we find out if a committee is created?
We're going to do that right now.
Okay.
Alan, do you want to bring stock right now, or do you want to wait and push this to just be involved in this idea?
Why don't we do it right now? It's fresh on our mind.
Okay.
Frank has their attorney here.
Sure, why don't you come on right up?
Yeah. Bill, you want me to talk?
And Jennifer and Kevin. Cool.
Yes, I'm William Dubord. I represent Kennebec Federal Savings, which bank is right adjacent to this plan. I hadn't seen any notice or seen the plan, but I did speak with Alan when he heard about it right away, and I heard that it was going to be discussed at this meeting. Unlike the farmer's market, which was 1 day a week for 3 hours, this would close that road 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And Kennebec Savings Bank is against that. It feels that it would adversely affect its customer access. It feels that when the big delivery trucks were delivering materials to the businesses on that street, that would be hurt the parking and hurt access to their place, and would adversely affect their banking business and the customers' access to their business. I think even if this were going to proceed, that this would need a site plan review by the planning board. It's not a subdivision, but they have the site plan review requirements, and I think it would probably need a traffic impact analysis, because I think that definitely could affect, if you can't go through that road, it could affect the traffic and access in and out of the concourse. That's all I have to say at this point, but I don't know if other abutters also object to it, but Kennebec Savings Bank feels it would definitely adversely affect their business, which is a bank that is a good business. I like the businesses that are doing this. I've been to those for years, but I just don't think it's good to have that road closed and be out there.
Well, Bill, if we do have some meetings, then it probably would be important that you and the bank give their input. And that could make a difference, a real difference.
Okay.
John, first of all, my name is Alan Rancourt, and for those of you who don't know me, I've lived in Waterville all my life. I've sat there for 11 years on the planning board, so I kind of know a little bit about this. And I think that, number one, closing down that section for 24/7, for whatever it is, rainy days, cold days, or hot days, is not the fair way for the citizens or the taxpayers of Waterville that will have to go around that area. That court, Merchants Court, is a busy area all day long. And that's why if you do a traffic study, you will find that out, to shut that down. Not only that, there's what I call traffic flows in the concourse, which are the pavements between the parking lots. And in that particular case, and in the other particular case, there are 6 traffic flows that have probably 20 to 30 parking stalls on each side. If you can't get over there, they all have to flow out to the Whirligig Road, and you will queue up a line from the Silver Street, Spring Street light that could go all the way out to where the Curly Key is, and that you won't get out of that traffic flow for a while. That doesn't seem like a fair thing for the taxpayers of Waterville. Now, I mentioned the taxpayers of Waterville because no one's answered this. What are they going to pay for a lease?
Michael,
That's up to them.
has anything been proposed?
No?
So I'm under the assumption that this could be a free giveaway to those people making money. Now, you're going to have a budget meeting discussion in the next couple of hours, and you're looking at 1 mil, 2 mils, or whatever. I just want you to know that if this is not going to, if these people are not going to have a lease, you're asking for the taxpayers of Waterville to subsidize that. That is wrong. Thank you.
So the first thing is, we were never told there wouldn't be a lease. We were told, when I asked about the park, we were told that first we needed approval, and then that would be discussed after. So that was never a free giveaway that I knew of. So hopefully it would be reasonable, but that would be yet to be discussed. Second, if you talk about inconvenience of traffic patterns, there's a giant building going up in the concourse. I'm not sure if anyone's noticed, but my exit from the concourse is really inconvenient. It's so hard to get out, but you know what I do? I just take one of the other 3 or 4 exits. It really isn't, it's not going to affect my life drastically to change my route. So for 2 months, I think people can figure it out, and if it is having a huge impact and we say after the 2 months, wow, this was horrible, then next year you guys say no to us. So I think that's an easy answer, because I know what I've done. I've just changed my exit out of the concourse, because right now it's very difficult to get past where the Yard Goods Center is in that location, and I'm sure all of those merchants were not thrilled about the construction going up in their area as well. So it's one of those things where I hope you guys see the benefit, and that I did include pictures of KFS and where they're located in comparison to where this street is going to be blocked off. And directly, it doesn't seem to impact people getting to their door. But I definitely understand a concern. I understand that having discussions would be beneficial, But I believe the fact that people won't be able to get around in the concourse because they're going to somehow get tied up and lost in there, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen.
I just want to say this. We don't know that. But I'm a little disappointed, and this isn't in you or in you, that this plan came before this city council. And it's not your fault. It's not anybody here's fault. We haven't, this should have come here with traffic analysis. It should have come here with proposed lease terms. Not your fault, but I'm very disappointed that this was thrown on the council this way. I don't think it's fair to you. I don't think it's fair to the 7 councilors who are sitting here right now. So hopefully we can take some time and figure that out, and that all needs to get done before we come back with this, I would say. It shouldn't be that hard. We have a city engineer who can go assess these things. That should have been done before this came to the council tonight.
Can I just ask a
Yes.
to Jennifer and Kevin, how long do you, would it take for you guys, like, what's your drop dead date to find out what you're approved or not? Like, to get it up and running by the 1st of September, when would you have to have?
1st of August.
1st of August.
1st of August.
Yeah, I was really hoping to have an answer tonight before we knew there was opposition. So I really thought it would go through. We'd then discuss this whole, now what is the situation with the lease? And
So by 1st of August, if you got approval by then, you could get it done?
no, that's when it would start.
Oh, that's when it starts. So when
that,
would
When we started,
So
we
when
don't
would
have
that-
that 2-month window
Okay.
that we're actually home before we have to close.
Gotcha.
And that's why this is gonna be a test run.
So what's your drop dead date?
I really don't know. I mean, I would hope to have 6 weeks, and so we're getting close to that time right now. It's going to take time because
Again, we also wanna do this the right way.
Well, and that's why I apologize to you on behalf of the city, because I think it is unfair to all parties involved that this was even brought here this way, to be honest with you.
Well,
We don't expect you to have all those answers. When somebody comes to the city, that stuff should have been done before it came here.
okay.
Mike, what's the first date, what's the first council date in July?
3rd.
How about we table this to the 3rd? Give us a chance to maybe get a committee going and look into it a little
Second.
bit.
Maybe get a committee going to look into it?
Yeah,
To look into what?
look into traffic impact, neighbors.
Traffic impact, neighbor concerns, and proposed lease agreement.
Well, the council already has 4 existing outdoor dining permits.
Yeah, what, do we have at least?
Do you charge for those?
I don't know, do we?
No,
Well, don't we, so
Are you
doesn't
talking
this-
about the ones down on Silver Street?
correct,
How
on
did those come
public,
about? A lot?
on
a
public
lot-
property.
Right, as part of a much larger plan, Mike. As part of a much larger plan that.
Well, if the
incorpor-
council had
Excuse me, I'm
told us,
talking.
if the council had told us you
Michael?
wanted a larger plan,
Mike, I'm talking.
okay,
Please don't talk over me, and I'll give you your chance. That was done as part of a larger plan that included all the neighbors. It took into consideration those who wanted throughway traffic, those who didn't want throughway traffic, those that wanted parking on Silver Street, and those that didn't want parking on Silver Street, and it was part of a much larger plan. That's what I'm trying to say here.
okay. There are other outdoor dining places besides those on Silver Street.
On their own land though, right?
No, they're on sidewalks, they're on public land.
Proper Pig is the other that is on the sidewalk, besides Silver.
Well, Sailor T has,
They have some-
yeah.
Yeah.
So, are we gonna charge for all of them?
Well, I mean, this does actually block a street, you know, and
You know, we had no idea that people were gonna come forward with very specific plans for the concourse until they showed up. I mean, I don't have a crystal
Well,
ball
yeah, and that's
to
why
say this is gonna
We
happen.
probably ought to at least have some kind of plan so we don't deal with these all piecemeal.
Well, what would be the objective of that plan? We can develop a plan,
Yeah.
but we need to know what is that goal you want the plan to achieve. Do you want outdoor dining someplace in the concourse?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think it's a great idea, but to the extent that other people are having issues with it, we ought to at least investigate them without having an up or down tonight, I think. I don't know.
Well, and of course, we don't know until we get here, sometimes,
I
who's gonna
understand,
show
I
up.
understand. I'm not blaming you. I'm not banging my gavel.
He's not talking over you.
Oh,
Is it possible, to do this before the next meeting, or do we need to wait 2 meetings?
We're gonna take one more, Julian.
Can I ask the council to table this whole discussion, because it is a budget night, and it seems like there is a lot more that needs to be going on, and we could flog this horse for another hour, so please ask this get tabled and move on, please.
Mr. Rancourt.
Thank you. Mike does bring up a good topic on Silver Street. We do have conversations on it. I happen to manage a family trust, which is 1 Silver Street and 44 Main Street, which incorporates the Paragon shop, Pingree's office. And if you look at that wall, it has been vandalized and damaged. People have put beer bottles through it. I have pictures, Mike has the pictures that I've given him. And generally, it's because of late night activity on Silver Street. I talked to Joe. Joe has been kind enough to say we'll have an extra police protection down there, but it doesn't help. And who do I turn to? I can't turn to the city. The city's not gonna reimburse me the $14,000, $15,000 to repair that wall. You guys aren't gonna do that. And nor are the people, the restaurants across the way are gonna do that. So yeah, I think that there should be probably a bond that these people in the restaurant have to put up and have to sign that if there are damages, if someone is drunk enough that puts their head through a plate glass door, which I've had to go down to at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, that they should reimburse us. And yes, I also feel that maybe they should be paying for that ability, because they, once again, have the landlords that own those buildings. The taxpayers are subsidizing that outdoor dining. And we're not a rich town, so we have to look at other avenues for income. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Can I get a motion to table this?
Motion to table?
Do I have a date definite?
Mayor?
Yes?
Could we hear the second half of the proposal before we adjourn or table it?
I think we, and do them all in one fell swoop?
Well, we have to vote on each one individually, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Resolution 102 is the Joseph's. You know who's outdoors, what we're working on now. We can certainly table each one individually or act on.
It was just mentioned earlier that they handled both resolutions in one discussion.
These two are coupled together because they have the same footprint outside that they're asking for. The 18 below is a separate.
I would recommend the council include the 18 below plan with that, because we're gonna hear a lot of the same thing. It's taking up parking as well. And again, I think in fairness to, this should be a positive experience to them. It's fair, out of fairness to the council, I would ask the council maybe vote to table all 3 of those resolutions.
to the first meeting in July.
To the first meeting in
First
July.
meeting in July, yes, I agree. I make a motion.
I will, okay. Make a motion to table resolution 101, 2018, 102, 2000, oh, excuse me.
Yeah,
Yep,
102.
102, 2018, 103, and 104, 2018, until the first meeting in July.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. We'll be in touch. All right. Next is Order 105, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
An order providing for appropriation of municipal and school operating budgets for the period of July 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2019.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Okay, council discussion. We'll give a minute for people to. I'm just giving folks a second to move that, want to move out, so people who are here for this conversation. All right, council discussion on the budget.
We're ready to answer questions.
Now, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, we have, and Heather. Mike, we have several propositions on the municipal budget, right, that were formulated through workshop and through individualized meetings of councils in your office.
Right.
With Heather involved as the finance director. I know for a fact that all the people on the city council have been diligently working on this in conjunction with your insight and feedback and with itemized lines and cuts. Again, I think this is all about minimizing the increase. We are fully aware that the city has taken in less revenue this year than last, and we are in, again, a very difficult financial picture for the city. There are several proposals that I think we're going to discuss as far as an overall tax mill rate, and I just want to say that any kind of increase is, I am reluctant against in every category of my fiber. My ward, in conjunction with many wards, I know the pain and I know the agony and the sacrifice of fixed income people, blue collar workers, senior citizens, and I share many of the burdens and sorrows of what I have gone street to street and house to house and had conversations in living rooms and kitchens. I do realize after diving into this budget with my fellow councilors and the administration that this is a budget that is really unequivocally has to have an increase of some sort. It's come down to trying to find a way to minimize the increase the best that we can. There are some proposals on the docket that we will talk about. I am for the motioning of the less evil, which is, I believe, the 1.9, which we discuss. And I think in conjunction with what I'm saying, I think the council is in agreement with that as a body. And moving forward with that as the motion, but I would like to have Mike and Heather entertain the ideas of the proposals and where we're at before we, of course, have public discussion on this as well.
Mike, so that everyone's aware, the proposal that, because there was a couple proposals that you and Heather had put forward that were in the newspaper. For everybody here's sake, can you let us know which version is in front of us right now?
Right.
Before amendments?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we went through everything that we talked about last Tuesday at the budget meeting. We went through and incorporated those changes, the ones that Mike and I had suggested, into the budget. So all the proposed cuts to, there was a list of them. And some of the additional revenues, going back through the cuts and the revenue adjustments that the school made, we put all of those in. And so from originally proposed, it was the 3.14 mil increase. We've brought it down to a 2.23 mil increase with all of those changes. And I don't know if the council has.
Oh.
So I had emailed out to you the backup to the budget order in the form of the summary sheet that everyone's used to, showing the increase in the use of city surplus, the increase in the use of park funds from the 460 to 490, and there was a net decrease in other city revenues, but it was because we added some and then we took away the school resource officer funding, so there was just changes.
I would say that just, we are still having a school resource officer,
yes.
it's just where it's being allocated, being paid for by the city,
Right.
not out of the school budget. So I don't want anyone to think that we're cutting the school resource officer.
And one thing, Mike, I'd like to reiterate here, we're actually proposing, on the city side anyway, to spend less money than we spent last year. And that's
Correct.
before this new round of cuts, right?
Correct.
Right.
But-
I think our total budget was 58,000 less than last year. Of course, we had a whole bunch of capital improvements last year that were
Right.
not in the budget this year.
Right.
So that's a big part of that, but yes, our spending is 58 less than last year.
Well, with the new proposal, it's now down 320,000.
320,000 less than last year.
Correct.
Right. We had 700,000 in capital improvements last year. We don't have today.
Okay.
So we had one-time funds matched up with one-time purchases last year.
Right. That was a big part of it.
So if this was a normalized budget without those one-time purchases and one-time funds, spending would actually be up, and we've discussed that was mostly wages and benefits, correct?
Benefits, it's the insurance is killing us. And revenue
So,
sharing.
as you said earlier, there's a range of options to get that increase below below 2. And the options that have been most talked about is using more of our reserves, whether it be the PERC money reserve or the surplus city has. As I understand it, the council seemed to be more in favor of using almost all of the PERC money, up to about 100,000.
Correct.
And making up with city surplus the rest in order to bring the 2.2 mil increase down to 1.9.
Right.
1.9 or was it 1.95 that we came to? I don't know.
It's 1.95.
One-
It would go from 2.23 to 1.95.
Mike, when you say use city surplus, that's left over from
2018.
unspent funds, not
Correct.
tapping into
Correct.
Correct, exactly.
the savings.
That's an important distinction, thank you.
We estimate that we'll have a little bit left over this year, and this budget's using some of that, not dipping into our current reserves.
Right.
Right.
Which are already below our 12% that we're shooting for.
Correct.
And Heather, you have a rough figure of that. Is that around 11.6, 11.7 in that range?
The
For
percent
surplus.
of reserves is 11.9.
Oh, as of the last audit, it was 11.95.
Okay.
So if we do not use all our 2018 surplus, will that get us back to our 12% or
No.
not even, not quite?
No, we'll still be just under.
Yeah, we'd have to fund additional specifically to increase fund balance.
Mike, the bond that we reviewed the other night for about $7 million that didn't include upcoming school expenditures, do we have any estimation as to what that payment would be when added? Because that's not included in this budget, but if that gets voted on in a few months, that's going to be cooked into future budgets.
Well, remember, that 7 million figure was a result of asking every department head to essentially prepare wish lists. And so that wish list was very long, total 7 million. I doubt very much that when we get to this same discussion, a year from now or less, that all of those items on that wish list are going to be approved. Could be 7, could be 4, could do the bonding in 2 separate issues, 3 and 3. So to answer your question directly, if it was 7 million, the debt service would be 300 something?
Right, around, over 300,000. But when we met with the bond, who was he, her bond management
Yeah, attorney
man?
and consultant.
We asked him to run a number of different scenarios, whether we did one $7 million issue, or if we did 2 $3.5 million issues. And then there's other ways that if we do it on our own, we can fund it. We can do the full issue and then hold off on some of the principal payment for a few years until we do have another bond that's falling off. So there's a number of ways that we can make it work so that it's not a huge hit to the taxpayers immediately, but we can still do the things that we need to do, like redo roads and buy equipment and all of that.
We've been trying to hold off because we are retiring one debt service. We are retiring one bond in 2021.
I think so.
So that'll take some of our debt service down.
I think the 7 of us are in the same ballpark that we want to get this under 2. So I would make a motion to amend the budget to increase the use of the PERT funds, except 100,000, and use the remaining surplus to bring it to 1.95.
The remaining surplus or 100,000?
100,000.
100,000.
Yes.
Was that what we talked about?
That's what we talked about.
Yeah, 100. So, to be clear, what you're looking to,
Is there a second?
I would say.
can I just clarify exactly what the motion is for? So, what we would be looking to do is increase the use of PERC reserves from the proposed 490 to 800,000, and decrease the use of city fund balance from 200,000 to 100,000.
Correct.
Okay.
And just so, and that would leave, because we're still a little bit under 12 in the general reserve. So where city pay increases and benefit increases this year were roughly 600,000 total, roughly.
Yeah, all personnel.
And school pay increases were
salaries.
6%. We know those are 4% next year. And with the city probably going to go up next year, just to be clear, there'll be no funds. There'll be 100,000 left.
There will be $100,000 in PERC money left over.
That's being put aside, not
Correct.
not reallocated.
We're gonna be facing a big hole next year. No, there's absolutely no question about it. We spent 900,000 last year in PERC money. We're spending 800,000 this year in PERC money. That leaves 100,000 for next year. So you had 9 and 8 is a lot of money that's not gonna be there next year.
Well, Mike, you've shown us the graphs. I mean, we've been using,
Right.
you know, from our regular surplus, and that's gone.
Yep.
We're down to our 12%, so we got an election in the fall. Who knows what next year may bring?
Revenue sharing at legal levels,
Yes.
possibly.
I haven't seen either party wanting to do that.
I want to do it.
I think we all want to here.
Yeah.
Okay, we will open it up to the audience in a moment. I just want to make sure the council has their, actually, there's actually the motion, there's an amendment on the floor.
Second.
And there is a second. All those in favor of the amendment and use of the PERC funds? It's unanimous? And then we need to move it as amended, is that correct, Pam?
Move as amended.
Okay, so now, it is open for discussion. Is there any more discussion from the council? We allow for public comment. Okay, if you are from the public and would like to comment or have a question, please come to the podium, tell us your name, where you live, and you have.
Julian Payne, Ward 5. I don't have any ID on me, so. I'd just like to point out to the community and everyone here, community, that this year's school budget, really, there needs some thanks to go to Eric and Paula, because they also not only dealt with this budget, but it was the entire breakdown of the AOS they had to deal with. And not only break it down with Winslow and Vassalboro, but then rebuild the entire system and structure it before we even got to our budget. So this year was quite a unique situation. And, you know, hearing these revenue depletions, I think we all as people in Waterville need to think creatively about how to get money to Waterville, you know. I know Rosemary Winslow was big with the airport. Maybe you know a friend who has a business. Sometimes an idea that you think isn't that great really is a good idea for the city. I reached out to Eric this week, and we're possibly talking about a foundation for the school system where people donate tax money or write-offs or wills, or those who have extra money at the end of the year might want to donate something. You know, I was just talking to an elderly lady who's got a few million, didn't know where to leave it, and so these are all great examples where people can charitably give to that foundation and take up the slack that, you know, these hard times come up with. So maybe in June, hopefully that's something we can look at as a board. And I know they've done a lot of work with this AOS breakdown, and it was a lot of extra hours. So, you know, for me, that's, I'd like to just let the community know that. Thank you.
All right, Reen Finch, Ward 6. What would it take to get to a mill rate of 0? What would we be looking at in terms of cuts or reductions, or like what are we talking about to get to
Personnel,
0?
We'd lose a fire department, among other things, to do that.
It would be.
Wait, a mill rate of 0 or an increase?
An
of
increase,
0?
an
I think those
increase,
are two
yes,
very
an
different
increase
things.
of 0, where this amendments for 1.9. I'm just wondering, like, how drastic of an impact would it have on the city for us to get to an increase of 0?
And I think public safety would be at issue at that point. Yeah.
A 1.9 mil increase is $1,411,094.
But what does that mean in terms of actual assets or people, or like how many city employees
You're looking
is
at
that?
cutting departments.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So then did you wanna?
Counselor, you wanted to make a statement?
Yeah, just to answer some of that stuff, and like I said, there's a generalization sometimes of how, and I'd be the first one to say, you know, out of context if I didn't know that, like Rian said, to bring it down to a flat budget.
You have to stop spending increases, right?
Right, spending increases. We have to keep in mind that the city of Waterville is in a very unique place in the state of Maine. We are the 5th smallest landmass city in the whole state of Maine. We have only 13 square miles, and if you want to compare that to the city of Augusta of 54 square miles, and the economic development activities going on there, and their mill rate is right around 19 to 20. They are able to keep that because of their land mass and the fact Waterville has, out of the 13 square miles, 30% tax exempt status of that total 13 miles. 13 miles is not a lot of land mass, folks. This is the reason why we're trying to encourage development of the Trafton Road Exchange. In the long term, the city looks good. Long term, the city looks good. It's the short term that's the killer. And when we as a council go down the budget at itemized line after itemized line in conjunction with the finance director and the city manager, I can assure you, I'm one of the most fiscally conservative of all the bunch on here. and I have migraines thinking about it because I have great empathy for my constituents that are struggling, as other councils on here as well. But we just have so much stacked against us in the small city of Waterville. There's a lot to contend with. And we're really at a line in the budget where we're really meeting our maker in a lot of different ways. And that's a drastic thing to say, but it really is when you look at the itemized line budget, line by line, department by department. This would literally, if we were to bring this down, like Heather said, we would have to gut departments. We would actually have to have a volunteer fire department. And we're the service center for any surrounding outside cities. We would have to not have anybody full-time, nobody sleeping overnight in their bunks. The call for emergencies would be very much jeopardized. Police department would have to be gutted. We're talking about, you know, public safety, we're talking about city service.
Because of spending increases.
Right, spending, right.
Because of spending increases.
Of inherently over the past many years, which
Right,
the mayor
right.
has articulated and said in conjunction, which I'm in agreement with most of his analysis on that. It's been an inherent number of spending issues with the city over the course of well over a decade.
As well as loss of revenue.
But I just want to be clear that the spending increases that we're seeing are related to, they are largely related to increased cost of benefits, which is not something that we control.
Yes, that is a rising cost. I agree with
So
that.
that's how our hands are tied behind our back.
It's like a cookbook. There's many ingredients that are incorporated into this overall, like Lauren said, like Nick said, like most of the councils are saying, we are really facing a cauldron of different entities that we're up against, that we're dealing with. And again, this budget, the best way I can describe it with the councils is basically we have to do whatever we can within our power and our grasp to minimize the increase.
I just question, because Councilor Stoll, and I just want to say this because I know I said at the last budget meeting, has recommended for 2 years that in a year prior, we say to departments and schools included, here's what we can afford next year, so make sure this is what you're working towards. But hopefully we can do that in the future. 'Cause, it's difficult when we collective bargain very large increases, and then we have this budget, and then we're trying to nip away 20,000 here, 40,000 here. I know Steve's brought that up multiple times in the past, and with his experience in the schools, I think that was his experience as a school principal. So hopefully going forward, that could be a way to minimize increases.
Well, by the same token though, we're competing with other towns for our professionals, and if the teachers in Winslow are getting paid X, but the teachers in Waterville are only getting Y,
And that is the case.
the good teachers are gonna go across the river.
I'm talking in general, all budgets.
I mean, yeah, let me just explain how that works. I mean, you know, like, I won't be on the council next year, but it would just be really smart if, before the process starts, if you set a target and let all the department heads know what the target is, and so that they'll come really close to that target right from the start, so we don't have to do so much cutting. That's what I'd
Well, I
like
will
to see
say
done.
that I think that the department heads have let us know what it would take to reach those targets, and what it would take would be, as Sydney said, gutting those departments. It would take becoming a volunteer fire department, losing police officers,
Trash
losing
collection, yeah.
trash collection. I mean, that has been made clear. We have, and Heather's done a wonderful job, I think, putting together very realistic budget figures that we have to look over the past years, and we can see exactly what we would be losing if we.
And all y'all's, housing insurance costs would go up. And there would be, in the absence of a professional fire department, in the absence, with fewer police officers. And there you lose the whatever benefit you would get from a flat mill rate. So it's like the worst GRE question ever, to try to kind of figure this out. It's like a logic puzzle with no good solution.
There are other people who would like, yeah.
Yes, just a quick question, and I think it might be for the city manager or maybe for the mayor, whoever may have the answer to this question. What is the effect on our bond rating through using more of our reserves and using that perk money? Is there an effect that it is going to hit us down the road?
If we were to, I think I feel qualified to answer this, and I'm sure, if we were to continue to use more of our city reserves, the perk funds they're not gonna affect us at all. If we were to continue to use our reserve funds, that could definitely affect our credit rating, which would drive up our interest rates on future borrowing.
Oh yeah, just a follow-up question on that, because I have been here when we've talked about using the perk money. Is there a negative to using the perk money, or?
Well, it just means you don't have the money in the bank next year.
Okay, but it has no effect on the bond rating, as you just said.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Payne, just 1 minute, because you've been up already once.
Julian Payne, Ward 5. Just to answer to John O'Donnell, the teachers this year, the board and Eric did strive to make the pay packages more competitive for Waterville. But
Don't say that, don't say that.
in answer to the question about telling the board what to do, it's a separate government. So the board works, Eric frames it, the board either votes on it, and then we present it to you. At that point, you can either reject it or approve it. We don't like.
Just to be clear, we do not get involved with your collective bargaining. We do not approve
Right,
union contracts.
but when we present the budget, that's the time the council either accepts it or rejects it. I think, right?
Catherine Weeks, Ward 1. Like I said before, I'm very concerned about a tax increase. Sid, in your Ward 4, if it goes to 1.9, one of your people will be paying almost $500 extra a year for property tax. I know this isn't going to be really unpopular, but maybe you don't give the city employees an increase this year. Because I know other organizations have had to do that in the past. No increase in pay for the year. And I still bring the question forward. Maybe you do need to bring an outside consultant in to review every option there is, because we're missing the boat here. And the other thing we're missing, if you drive through the streets of Waterville, how many for sale signs are up all over the city? So I would just like to question that about bringing somebody else in to sit with our mayor, who is so well qualified in the finance department, to do that. I know the town of China, again, Sid, I know this is much a smaller place, but when the current town manager came in, things were in shambles. He's going to be retiring at the end of this month. China is in a very healthy state. There's got to be other options to look at.
Would you mind if I added to something you said about the for sale signs? I think that's partially an effect of the fact that we have the hottest housing market in Maine right now. And that's related to exactly what Sid said so beautifully, that like the long-term prospects of Waterville look very good. Like that's one of the things that's contributing to this really nice 5-year trajectory that we're on. And part of what we're balancing here is trying to not mess that trajectory up at the same time that we're trying to keep the mill rate as low as it could possibly be. So the things that are adding to the housing values are things like having strong city services. You know, that adds to the value of your home, and it makes a home more saleable. So we don't want to undercut that. At the same time, we want to keep people in their homes. I also think there are programs, and the more I say this in public meetings, I think the better. There are underutilized state programs to help people with property taxes. There's the property tax fairness credit is one of them, and then also credits for veterans. And I had several people call me in the last week, and they were completely unaware of those programs, even though they were eligible for them. And so I think spreading awareness about those is also has to be a really important piece of this. But thank you.
You know, that's nice that you think that, but the people I've been talking with are moving to Oakland, Sydney, because of property taxes. You know, maybe 5 years down the road, you know, we'll all look like Oz, but right now.
Yeah, I know, it's the balance, right, between wanting that long-term benefit and helping keep people in their homes. I totally agree.
Right, so I don't really think you understand the longtime residents piece of it. So,
I've talked to a lot of them, and my heart goes out.
but how are the residents going to pay an increase in property tax? Thank you.
Steve O'Coin, Ward 2. I'd like to peel the onion back a little bit here. Because I sat here as a counselor, I guess it was over 10 years ago, and Paul LePage was mayor, and he pronounced the cuts in state revenue sharing to be, begins with a B, and ends with a T. And it still is. It still is. We're owed that money. We gave up a revenue source. Every municipality in this state gave up a revenue source in exchange for a percentage of the, and it was around 5% of the general fund revenues. But if you continue to cut the income tax, and I believe that that's a major objective of the Republican Party to eliminate it totally, what does that do to the revenue at the state side that we're owed? I see nothing wrong with this council passing a resolution directed to the governor and the legislature to restore fully this program, because we're owed it. It was taken from us in a deal. So it was a negotiation back and forth. And all of a sudden, it's no good anymore? I was hoping the governor would, since it was that word, that he'd work to restore it. Instead, he's worked to cut it down. And I think that's part of the agenda here that you're looking at. So don't just look at the property tax unless you really want to just micro view this thing. We need the money to run the city, and we're owed it. And I think this council has to have a louder voice. I think the mayor has to have a louder voice in telling the legislature and the governor that we're owed this money. And that's That's, I think, a baseline, because I haven't heard this in all this discussion. And I think we should be looking at that very, very seriously and in very strong focus.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to put this budget to the vote, and I do want to be clear, this will come back in 2 weeks. There will be another vote. So you have 2 weeks to speak to your counselors, to speak to the city manager, speak to myself about this budget. All in favor? And that's a unanimous vote. I'll see you in 2 weeks on that.